Good afternoon, everyone. This is a little update for our course that you're currently taking to learn the AppDevPack from C3UG. What I'm going through with you today is the first incarnation of the Java bindings that HCL delivered with the latest version of the AppDevPack, version 1.0.0.5. So I just wanted to show you a quick sample of how you can deal with these classes, because if you will find them in the install package of the AppDevPack 105, but unfortunately there's not much documentation around. So I was just sitting down with our good friend Gordon Hegfield from HCL, and he helped me out a little bit in giving me some head start on how to work with these libraries, and I came up with the idea to present to you today how to build those libraries into your own Java code that you might be using. So for the sake of this application, I'm using VS.Code and the Java extensions here. And what you see here on the screen right now is a default Java application that I've created. It's a Maven project. So a Maven specific one. I'll show you the type that I use. It's the archetype quick start JDK 8 version that I'll be using here. So whenever you install these extended Java extensions to VS Code, you should be able to run or set up a project using this quick start thing as well. This will give us a code structure already and come up with a sample Java class that you see here. And as usual, the Java class itself is an app.java in a main folder here, in my source folder. There's a test class that gets automatically created, but we won't look into this one for the sake of this demo. So in order to get the domino-db part integrated into this, we first have to reference the libraries that you see from the AppDevPack install folder. And if you look at this install folder, we're particularly talking about, and let me just check my download folder, and here I have the package right there. And these two jar files that you see right here, the domino-db jar and the java.doc jar, these are the two things that we need to get started with. So how do we add these to a Maven project that is installed locally? Well, what I did to get this up and running is inside of my artifact that I'm creating, I created a subfolder called lib and just copied the files into this one. And then the next thing that I did was I'm referencing these in my POM file right here as a base dependency, which is this dependency right here. So the group ID is the same as my project here. The artifact ID is domino-db, the version as well, and I define this as system, and then I integrate this using the jar file that we have in our lib folder right there. This is relative to our base directory for the project, which then defaults to Proton lib and what we've seen here, right? So the Proton artifact right here, so which is the artifact ID. This is something you create whenever you create your Maven project from the wizard down here. So this is something that you would create right there. I'll copy those in. So with that, unfortunately, this is the thing that we need to do to get our domino-db environment set up so we can use it. Unfortunately, there's some, if we start coding with this, there's a couple of dependencies that need to go in there as well to make this library work inside of your application. One of them is gRPC. So there's another dependency that we have to define. We will document this in a separate thread on the course curriculum that you will see. Second dependency that we have to add is Apache logging. Another one are these two from Bouncy Castle. These have to do with OpenSSL and certificate handling. And these are the only two one, and the final one, right? The final one here is Google Guava. This is also something that's has to do with gRPC and the communication part. So these dependencies right here that you saw up here, these are the ones that you will need to get DominoDB up and running for this particular sample. Be aware there might be other dependencies as well. I'm not sure whether these dependencies are the only ones. It could be that other subsequent parts of the API will have more dependencies. We'll see about that. Currently, they're not really defined, so you will see as soon as you build your project, you'll see some things missing, and you have to add that here into your dependencies from the Maven, for your Maven dependencies. Other than that, we're ready to go. So what I want to do now is to build a very simple sample. And I mean, this application is barely the hello world, right? So that's the only thing that you can do with it. So what I want to do now is I want to connect from this application to my Domino server running Proton, opening up a database, reading some documents, reading some fields from the documents, and simply print line them to the console. So we'll see something like that in a base variant, right? So that's basically the only thing that we need to do. So for that perspective, we will do that very straightforward. We extend our main class right here, and to do that, we will first of all do a couple of imports that we need to handle this. And we will walk through them as you go along. And these are the imports. And of course, currently they're unsatisfied because we don't use them yet. But you see what we are already dealing with. A couple of basic ones, the Java util ones, or these ones here. So these are basically things that we have to that we need for string handling and for the file, Java IO file and IO exception things. That's what we need to handle certificates for the Domino configuration and that Proton configuration. This one down here, this concurrent Java util concurrent execution exception and executors, these are coming from the Google Guava part. As you might know, the one thing that is special about DominoDB on Java, it's also an asynchronous model, relatively similar to what you know from Node.js. So that's why we have things that are that use these classes heavily to incorporate this asynchronous model into the Java world as well. That's one of the dependencies that we've declared previously. The next thing that we want to do is we need some certificates for that. It's the same, and we have a similar data structure for our server configuration as we do have in on Node.js, and when I paste that one, you will see it's pretty familiar. So basically, we have a Proton host, which is our Domino server, the host name of the Domino server that we want to post, that we want to do the Proton task to, the Proton calls to. Sorry. We then have a port that we want to talk to, and then we have a client certificates that we need to do. So this is our application certificates. These are our application certificates, and I have them, and you see them right here in a subfolder inside of the project. I have my certificates stored here inside of the project, so I can reference them here. This is the full path on my local development machine, so bear with me for the length of it, but this is the certificate and the key for the user, and this is the CA authorization, the certificate authorization part that needs to be resembled, as well as we're using self-signed certificates here. So that would be pretty similar to what you do in the course with Node.js as well. There are two more parameters here that we can define. We don't need them. I don't need them in my configuration right here, which is the key password. Whenever you create from a certain time on, if you use OpenSSL, you're forced to have passwords on your key, on your SSL keys, and that's where you would put the password right here. Same thing goes for the nodes ID that is related to this app1 certificate and app1.key. Remember, Proton does the lookup to the technical user by using the certificate to identify the Domino user and extract the ID file from the ID vault. And if it happens to be that you created your ID with a password, you can pass it in right here. I didn't do that. My technical IDs don't have a password, so we're good to go with that. Of course, we have a database that we want to talk to. This is our SIT to-do database, and I have a document or query, a DQL query that I define, the easiest one that I can come up with. I want to read my to-do items, like form to-do items. So this basically defines things like the configuration that you have seen in Graham's videos during the course. As I mentioned, the certificates go in, I put them into this subfolder. You can do that pretty much anywhere, as long as you can reference it from your application. You can reference it later on when you deploy a project or the artifacts, right? So the next part is we're going to put in the code that actually handles a couple of things that we need to do. So first of all, of course, we have to come up with something with the try catch block, of course, and for the sake of all of what we're all doing here, I'm just copying this and put it right here. We catch a couple of exceptions, an IO exception and stuff, and a bulk operation exception, which is also part of the Domino package, interrupted execution exception, a couple of other things. So a couple of exceptions that we want to catch. Now let's see, how do we define access to the server object in domino-db for Java, and that would be basically this one. So with that code, we define the server object that we want to talk to and hand in all the parameters that we defined previously as the string parameters up here, right? So you see the host, the port. We also read the certificates in here. We pass in the keyword, the password to the client key if needed. We pass in the ID password file if needed, and then we start this the server connection. So after this object comes back, we should have a server object to talk to. Then we want to talk to our database, and of course there's a database object in the domino-db package as well. So with that, we're going to add that one in, which is this one here, which then gives us the database handle to our database. Database, as the variable is also defined up there, as a string, right? And we want to read in a couple of items from the documents that we have. So we define them in a list in that area. So it's an array list, and we put in two fields which are called, in my case it's author and subject. And then we're gonna read in these documents, and you'll notice a couple of things here. That's where we read that's the code to read the documents via domino-db. So you get a list of documents. We do a db read document, which is pretty similar to what we know from what we've seen from what we see on Node.js. We use our items to get them, and this parameter right here, this is the part that that makes this call asynchronous. This get in the end of here. Instead of having an await statement like we have it in Node.js, this is similar to the await part in Node.js, right? With that coming back, we're going to work on the result set of this, which is that part here. So we'll just walk through the result set. We read the author and the subject from the item list and print them out. And that's basically all that we need to do. And with that code, if everything goes well, we should be able to start our demo, and we should see here in the console right there. So I can use that console right here. And if I did everything right, we should see our hello world. And here are two data sets that are available on the database, and we can just take a quick look at the database itself, which is this application right here on notes. And you can see right here, these are the two documents that we've been referring to, and should just check that the fields are done read out correctly. This is the author field that we read out, and this is the subject field, right? So this is basically exactly what we see right there, and what gets print system out printed to the console right there. So this is the first head start on the Java development. This is only a very, very quick example. I'm currently thinking about uploading this to a GitHub repo so people can refer to it. I have to refactor a couple of things, especially with the certificates and stuff like that. I won't give you those. So the sample code will be available as well, as with cleaned out certificates and stuff like that on GitHub shortly. That's it for today, and for this extension, stay tuned for some more, and have fun with the course on Node.js, and maybe get your feedback after that in Java as well. So far, for now, bye.